On May 23, 1977, at 7:09 a.m., which will forever be remembered in the history of the Netherlands, when the day was supposed to start peacefully, a terrible announcement rang out on the train. It was a hijacking. In an instant, panic spread inside the train. Before the passengers knew it, the train stopped moving. The train lost control and the passengers were shocked and restless. No one knew what was going to happen. Meanwhile, another unexpected event was happening at the same time. 4 young men entered a school with 105 children and teachers, took them hostage and announced to everyone that the school was now under our control. In an instant, 2 dangerous events began to happen simultaneously. On the one hand, the train, and on the other hand, both became a terrible danger. This was not just a hijacking, but the beginning of a war. The confusion, panic and suffocating situation combined, it spread like a fireball across the world. No one knew how this situation would end and what was going to happen as a result of these 2 terrible events. Thus began a dramatic hijacking that changed the entire nation. Writing a new chapter in history, the identity of those who carried out this hijacking is not just a name stuck in the list of hijackers. They were representatives of an angry nation, Max Papaliahina and his companions. They were the tools of the people who have been neglected for a long time, who have never seen their rights respected. Like Max Papaliah, he was an ordinary government employee, but he had a deep anger in his heart because, like him, the people of South Malen have been victims of exploitation by the government, hereditary and historically. They have never received justice. The government has never given them equal rights, but they have been constantly being treated unfairly and neglected. They could not accept this anymore. So one day they chose a new path. Their demand was clear. The 21 Malen prisoners should be released and a bus should be provided for them to escape safely, and then a flight should be arranged for them at their request. The deadline is 48 hours. If the government does not accept their demand, 105 children in the school will lose their lives. Thus, 2 dangerous situations were created at the train and the school, behind which the government and their anger was an expression of deep anger against negligence. Their anger was for justice. However, to prove it, they chose the path of hijacking. Since the beginning of this hijacking, the entire country was shocked. Seeing the condition of the trapped passengers inside the train and the children trapped in the school, no one could understand what was going to happen. A terrible panic spread among the people. Everyone was confused by the same question. After this incident, like the passengers who were trapped inside the train that day, the people also had a deep number in their minds as if their time was running out. Meanwhile, the government also faced a difficult situation. How would they successfully pass this ordeal? What decision would they make? On the one hand, they had the safety of the common people, and on the other hand, the government's responsibility became even greater when faced with the demands of the hijackers. On the other hand, even if they accepted the demands of the hijackers, they would become a failed government. There was pressure to make a quick decision, and everyone was afraid that a bigger danger could come as a result of any wrong step. A strange dilemma arose among the ministers. Some ministers wanted to remain calm. They thought that the problem should be solved through negotiations at any cost, but on the other hand, the Prime Minister Dan L. began to cry in horror. He knew that his decision would put the lives of hundreds of people at risk. There was a look of fear in his eyes because this was not an ordinary situation, as if a terrible tragedy was about to begin. Because even if the hijackers' demands were accepted, the government would prove to be a failed head of state, and after trying to solve everything quickly, it walked away. At the same time, there was a huge instability within the government. On the one hand, saving lives, and on the other hand, political pressure. This dilemma, Panic and the government's uncertain decision determined the next turn of events. The panic of the public and the helplessness of the government created a dangerous equation. In such a situation, after a mysterious decision unknown to the government, military preparations began at a rapid pace. However, ensuring the safety of the public while avoiding the risk of their death and handing over the hijackers without killing anyone was a huge challenge. The Dutch Marines began preparing thousands of sniper machine guns. Everything was prepared. The entire plan was well organized for the moment of attack so that no one could get out of preparation for a moment. The snipers, perfect shots and machine guns were ready in secure positions. The plan was to ensure that the hijackers would be targeted in any situation and that the passengers could be safely rescued. And then finally, that intense moment came. When the situation was tense across the country, the government's operation began first. The soldiers tried to quickly reach the train. Explosions from outside, sniper shots and machine gun fire were heard one after another. As soon as the attack began, terrible chaos ensued. Although the plan was specific, first to find out the hijackers' location from inside the train and then gradually surround them. Even the soldiers knew that this was not an easy task. Still, the snipers started taking shots at the right time and the machine gun fire continued as if it were a battlefield. Every step, every move was absolutely perfect. The entire area started to tremble with the sound of sniper shots and machine gun fire. The plan was specific, but in reality it took shape in a confusing and bloody situation. The Marines started moving forward quickly. Their goal was to destroy the hijackers and ensure the safety of the passengers' lives. But the Marines kept firing one after another to achieve their goal. But the victims of these shots were not only the hijackers, the passengers also started getting shot. They thought they were on their way to freedom, but they themselves were also shot. Deaths continued to occur one after another, and not only deaths but also a terrible toll as a result of the attack, because it was a terrible misunderstanding. The Marines thought that the hijackers could still pose a threat, but in reality they were captured. But why did they still open fire without giving them a chance to surrender or negotiate? This is where the mystery deepens. After this bloody incident, the government also seemed to be silent because even though the attack was successful, questions arose about the circumstances and the real truth behind that success. The government did not say anything about how, why and under what circumstances the hijackers died. These questions were buried forever. Why were they shot and killed so brutally despite the opportunity? Even the autopsy reports, which are usually prepared to explain the cause and circumstances of death, were very opaque. Some of the marks were the marks of the moments before death. The autopsy report also contained some mysterious and strange marks that no one could explain properly. The question arose whether these marks were caused by murder or continuous shooting or were there some other planned incident. Meanwhile, journalists started searching and the media started investigating. Journalists started asking questions one after another. What was the government hiding? The pressure on